Tim, I, like everyone else, wants to know whether God exists, and people tell me I have to have some kind of an experience. Well, I don't have any experiences. I don't feel it. And so therefore I try to look to some of the arguments for God. And the argument that has always seemed the most powerful to me is the so-called first cause, or the cosmological argument. You've worked a great deal in this, and I really want to understand how to think about the cosmological argument.
Right, great. Well, it's a style of argument that contrasts a bit with more familiar design type of arguments. A design argument says, look at something really special about the world that we inhabit, say maybe biological life, pre-Darwin, or maybe the existence of human beings in a more contemporary mode, the fact that our universe seems exquisitely fine-tuned at a fundamental cosmological level for the existence of life, and you might think that cries out for a special explanation, and then there's an appeal made to God as the best such explanation. The cosmological argument also thinks that if we're to have a satisfying or ultimate explanation of the world that we are a part of, we're going to have to make recourse to God. But it doesn't depend on any special feature of the universe. Rather, it's just the sheer fact of existence. Now, you referred to first cause argument. Sometimes people put it like this: well, why are we here? Because, well, we decided to come here and to have a conversation, and that led to our being here. Why did we decide to do that? There were causes behind that. And ultimately, if you go far enough back, the idea is you have to come to a first cause. And God, that would be God. But that sort of style of argument seems to presuppose that maybe our universe never had a beginning. Maybe it just goes back endlessly. It's a hard idea to wrap your mind around, but there doesn't seem to be any incoherence in the idea. So that's why I don't favor that way of thinking about the argument for the existence of God. That's why I don't favor that style of cosmological argument for the existence of God. Rather, I think that even if our universe had no beginning, we could still ask about it. Yeah, but why this? Why the particular infinitely sequence of events that we have? Why is there that? There might have been some other infinite sequence or some finite sequence of events, or maybe nothing at all. Why do we have the existing reality that we do? The claim is we're going to have to make recourse to a special sort of concept, the concept of a necessary being, in order to tie that explanatory loop in a satisfying way.
Okay, so let me just understand that we're dealing with this cosmological argument. There are two kinds then. One is asking for a sort of a temporal, in time first cause, if there is one.
Right.
But what you're doing is a different kind of cosmological argument. Both are cosmological arguments, but the different one is asking for an explanatory reason for whatever you find, even if whatever you find has no first cause because there's an infinite cause.
Precisely.
Okay. All right. So this is a more fundamental approach, because you in essence don't care,
right,
in your argument whether there was a literal first cause in time of what we find.
Exactly. It makes no assumptions about the character of our universe. It leaves that to the job of fundamental science to try to give us our best clues as to how big of a universe do we inhabit. Is it beginningless or not? That the argument makes no assumptions, and therefore it's a stronger argument. The fewer assumptions you make, the more compelling an argument is.
Well, it's less challengeable. I'm not sure if it's stronger, but it's less challengeable because you're not at the mercy of what science may tell you tomorrow.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'll give you that. Now, with what we have, how do we get to God from this, what we see?
Right. So suppose that our universe has no beginning. And so each step along the way as our universe unfolds, there's an explanation of why the universe is that way at that particular time in terms of the way the universe was just prior to that, and given the laws of nature that govern how things unfold, how the universe evolves over time. So there's a step-by-step explanation for each piece of the puzzle. And whether it's an infinite puzzle or not, the question is, yeah, but why that puzzle? Why that complex chain of events? And so it looks like we're going to have to go outside of the chain if we're to explain it, right? But if we go to just some other thing, and we don't say that other thing is a necessary being, it's just some special cause, then we might say, yeah, but why is reality such to have had this special cause that gave rise to this infinite chain? And it looks like we're going to get into a regress. It looks like you can't give a satisfying explanation.
People always say that if you claim God is that, then what caused God?
Exactly.
You have to. Your claim is you have to stop. Now you're using a term called necessary being.
Yeah.
And what does that mean?
Right. Well, in a nutshell, it's the idea of something that simply must be. It's something that simply couldn't have been otherwise. Its very existence is such that it had to be that way. And that's a very puzzling idea. The idea of necessity is a familiar idea to us. We think that certain truths, like truths of pure mathematics or truths of fundamental logic, these are necessary truths. They don't depend on the universe happening to have the particular physical makeup that it does. They would describe any reality, right? Pure mathematics. So those truths are necessary. The idea of a necessary being then conjoins that idea of necessity with existence and saying maybe there's a kind of reality that simply must be. It's, if you like, explanatorily self-contained. Okay? That would be the idea of a necessary being.
Okay, so now we have the idea of a necessary being, which I know you're going to try to take to God, and that's fine. But now we have two ideas. We have necessary being, and then we have the universe or existence as we have it. Now, how do you go from what we have here, which is contingent, it didn't have to be this way, to necessary being? How do you draw those together, or can you?
Right. Well, so there's going to have to be some sort of explanatory relationship. The trick is that we're trying, the argument wants to presuppose one thing about our world, that it didn't have to be the way it is. If you don't make that assumption, then you don't have to go outside of the universe. Spinoza, a great famous 17th century philosopher, agreed that we needed to suppose there is necessary being, but he identified necessary being with the totality of the world that we inhabit, rather than thinking of it as a transcendent being. I think that's an interesting idea. I think there are problems associated with that of a variety of sorts. But so if you don't go, if you think we need to think of our reality as a contingent reality, and somehow is explained by the existence of a necessary being, if it was inevitable that the necessary being gave rise to our reality, then it looks like our reality becomes a necessary being too, derivatively. It's a necessary consequence, a necessary causal upshot of the necessary being. But if you're going to say that, why not just suppose the necessary being is our world itself? So that's what we need. And so we need some variety of non-necessary explanation. That is, the necessary being gave rise to our universe, but it might have given rise to something else, or maybe even nothing at all. One variety of explanation of just that sort is the way we ordinarily think about human choices. We're often confronted with a variety of alternatives, things we might do. I might go out for a walk on a Saturday afternoon. I might stay inside and read a book. I might go play with my children. There's a large variety of things that I might do. I choose one of them, let's say, to go for a walk. I had reasons for doing that. I enjoy walking on a fall day. But those reasons didn't compel me to do that. I also had reasons for doing other things, and on this occasion, I acted as I did. There's an explanation, a purposive explanation. Why did I go for a walk? Because I wanted to enjoy the fall day. It's a very relaxing thing to do. But it might well have been in just that circumstance that I had decided to do something different. So it's explained, but it's not necessary. If our necessary being is at all analogous to us in that respect, a purposive being, a being that forms choices based on its intentions, goals, desires, and beliefs about how to attain those goals, then this would be one way that we could conceive of necessary being. But if we're trying to give a philosophical argument for the existence of God, we shouldn't just automatically go to that way of thinking about necessary being, even though it's very familiar. Maybe we should think of God as the necessary being as some sort of impersonal reality. But then it becomes tricky to, if it's an impersonal reality, to understand how our universe would be a causal product of it, but only contingently. That is, only in such a way that it need not have been.
So what is your core move? How can you get from the nature of reality, however it is today, to the existence of a necessary being?
The move is, since there needs to be an explanation for why things in their totality, the world in which we habit, is as it is, then we cannot explain that in terms of just another being that might have been otherwise, because then we would just have a bigger thing to explain. So ultimately we need to, we have two choices. Either we say there is no explanation, it just is, or we say it's somehow the causal product of a necessary being, a being that simply must be. Those are the two choices. And it strikes me that, well, most modestly, other things being equal, if I've got two conceptions of reality, one of which can equally explain what I do observe, but one of which can explain even more about what I observe than the other does, I should prefer the more powerful explanation. So a person who says, I just stopped with our contingent reality, the world just happens to be the way it is, you can explain a lot within that, right? And that's the job of fundamental science, to explain the character of that reality and how it unfolds. But if you leave unexplained the fact of existence itself, it seems inherently incomplete. So appealing to a necessary being allows for there to be a completion of explanation. It's not a rival explanation to scientific explanation, but it does it completes the explanation of the famous medieval philosopher Thomas Aquinas said that God is the cause of causes, right? So we don't think of God as just another cause alongside fundamental physical causes. God is the cause of the whole sequence of causes of the world that we inhabit. And it seems to me that when you consider different ways of thinking of necessary being as the source of the world we inhabit, the best sort of explanation, the one that's most satisfying at the end of the day, is going to be one that appeals to thinking of God as something like a person, a purposive being that has reasons that are resistible for bringing about what it does.